Daryl, it's John again. West Coast again. Anyway, it's 2:04 West Coast time PM. Still the 3rd of December 2023. I love a video that you put out there concerning about the Iraq War and about 9/11 about Trace Atkins. Now I hadn't seen all the Trace Atkins stuff because they haven't been playing it as much out here in the West Coast. I'm playing other things left and right. But yeah, I'd seen the on cable when actually my television was actually working. Wounded Warriors coming up, and they do the patriotic stuff there. But don't get me wrong, I like his music. There are times I like listening to the music, and I know he wants to try to sound like he's ultra patriotic, and I don't know if he's MAGA or a maggot or not. But concerning about what he's been going through, he's got the voice, he's got the presence, and yeah, he's trying to do the patriotism stuff. Department of Veterans Affair. Department of Veterans Affair? Yeah, I think so. They've been having issues trying to take care of the veterans. And they still hadn't quite got everything else squared away for these guys. It's still a bureaucratic red tape. They can still change administrators, but they still haven't changed much for the veterans out there. They're still struggling for medical care left and right. It's a bureaucratic mess. I mean, it's supposed to be taking care of the veterans since, what was it back, World War One, World War Two? They really had to work on the mental health capabilities when we had the Vietnam situation happening, or Vietnam War, however they wanted to call it. I was about a Vietnam nightmare. Okay, concerning about what 9/11 was. Yeah, the young people are not going to remember it because it was way beyond them. I mean, this new generation, Generation Zers or whatever they'll call themselves, all they have is book knowledge. They don't have the old fart knowledge we have, and we've seen it. But then again, we were the younger generation when the greatest generation faced off in Europe trying to complete World War One Part Two. We actually had more action happening over there and more issues happening. All that because of one assassination happened. World War One, everything else went inflamed, and still continuing to this day, I guess. In Part Two, we actually had another country bomb the crap out of a territory we're using as a base. We didn't exactly adopt them officially, but we used the islands because we took over because we needed to afford bases out there for our own marine dominance of the seas, I guess, or protection of the seas. But we also did stuff to the Japanese by putting them in internment camps and stateside, not to mention in Hawaii, to keep our security of our homeland intact. Boy, did we screw up on that one too. But we weren't taking any chances, fear and paranoia during those days. It took decades trying to make an official apology and try to clear things up, but there's no cleaning up this mess. We still screwed it up, and we still have to keep admitting it, acknowledge it, and to keep moving forward. But we have to keep it in the forefront of our minds. Manzanar was one of those camps we had out here in California. And we still have activists like George Takei talking about it because he was a prisoner of it without him realizing it. And he still talks about it. And I, as an American, would have to apologize for that situation right there. And we had been jumped, we had been hijacked, and we had the press going all over ape on that one. It took us years, not to mention many lives, to try to conclude the damn war that started in World War One. Okay, jumping forward decades now. 1990s. Forgot one war, the Gulf War. My brother was former military. He had been trained, and he screwed up in the military, but they still kept him on inactive reserve. Just because you're discharged doesn't mean you are discharged. You're still reserve, regardless. So, whatever the kind of stuff my brother went through, and I got other videos to talk about that earlier on, my brother got the call during the first Gulf War. Saddam Hussein of Iraq, who was already a political puppet installed already a long time ago. We took out the political power originally and put in a dictator because we wanted things, stable enough in that country, even for our own economic needs. And yeah, it was for oil. It was our own economic needs. I agree with that one. But Saddam became more and more greedy, more and more wanting power, just like Putin. He had developed weapons of mass destruction, gassing up the Kurds left and right in the northern Iraq areas, using them for target practice. He got pissed off about the damn thing. They still wanted their own territory. They still do. But you also have to look at the tribal considerations in Iraq as well. They had maybe about two or three tribes going to be warring against each other, even with the president that they actually had prior before Saddam Hussein, going after each other. Sunnis, Kurds, and God, what the hell was that one? Shit. But they had warred with each other. And then you got a strongman trying to rein in everybody. So there was not that much civil unrest until, well, we actually had the 1990s going, and Saddam decided to take the oil-rich area of Kuwait. We did it for economic reasons. We weren't going to be protecting people that much, but we were going to be protecting the rich people in there, not to mention getting the damn oil. I mean, this is much I have learned. This is much I understood. Not conspiracy theory, but I hope to God it wasn't. But I know it was for economic reasons. We did it. We had to get this guy out and stabilize the region. So we didn't have the economy screwing up left and right, not to mention our oil. Besides, you're talking about OPEC here. You're talking about a member of OPEC. You didn't. No, we actually had that kind of a. I think during those days we actually had treaties with that one. So we went into Iraq. We did Operation Desert Shield, and my brother was only part of Desert Storm. He was part of the operations that went in, did whatever their job was, and got the hell out. And my brother didn't talk about it much until decades later, of which I still looked at him from, you got to be shitting me, look. And then, you did that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes some things you just, I don't know, people would want to know more and more what the veterans did, but they were not exactly forthcoming on a lot of information, I'll tell you that much. So I didn't push it. I didn't push it. Didn't want to push it. I didn't want to push it. My brother was already having issues enough anyway when he got out of the military of having drug and alcohol abuse. A lot of things happened in there that he did that he wasn't happy or proud of, but he did it anyway. And he had to deal, he had to cope one way or another. And in 85, that's when he started his journey for recovery. So by the time, 5 years later, we get into a Gulf War situation where we have dozens or more nations coming together in coalitions to tell Saddam, one way or another, get the hell out of Kuwait or we're going to get you out, one way or another. And we did. We even set up fire to some of the oil fields out there, and then we had to have Red Adair's company coming in, if I'm not mistaken. Red Adair was primary contractor and taking care of oil fires. You want to see a Hollywood theatrical of it, you'd see the movie Hellfires on that one with John Wayne in it. surrealistic, but a little element here and a little element there concerning about oil fires back in the late 60s, early 70s. But it was still the company. And they still got fighting fire companies out there too, to this day. At least I think so. If we got oil, we got to have the companies to fight them damn fires. So we got Kuwait under control, and the government, and not to mention the oil. But jump it a few years earlier. Did I actually say Putin somewhere in there? Mother Russia? USSR? Comrade, shall we talk? There, you seem to be talking against the USSR. Let me tell you about the Afghanistan war that I had witnessed on television and in the newspapers during those days. Me being a patriotic American using a false Russian accent. I'd watched this thing come across my screen. I didn't even know what the hell's going on. And there goes the Scottish accent right there. Get those things screwed up, don't I? Anyway. Yeah, Russia wanted territory. They wanted a Czechoslovakia. They nailed their ass. I mean, they conquered them. Hell of a lot of Soviet armory. Not to mention Georgia and every other Baltic state we had out there. And then we got Afghanistan. Comrade, do you not know the story of power during that time? Even when they're coming to an economic collapse, they have used military power of the Soviets to conquer the land of Afghanistan. And boy, did they screw it up. Welcome to their version of Vietnam. Well, we had ours, now they had theirs. And we also had to have arms going into it, one way or another, with or without congressional approval. Kind of remind me of the South Central America situation there too, back in the early '80s. Oof, God, I hate to see those damn things. Ugh. Did I ever mention in some of my videos that I'm dealing with history? This is history, pal. Back history. Pay attention to all this shit. Do your Google search even further when you're going to be talking about stuff like this, because there are things relating to everything. That's the reasons why I went to college in the first place in my later adult life, because I got perspective and I'm getting more and more context, and I'm like, oh my God, are we in trouble as humanity? Oh, we cannot stop warring from each other for fighting over resources and God knows what else, because it's in our genetic nature, and it's in our manifest destiny, and it's in our psychic. We're so screwed up. It's not even funny. So, back to the land, trying to bounce from place to place. So we had helped the not the Iraqis, but the Afghanis, trying to take back their country, off the books and on the books, and it got to the point where they did their job. Russia got sick and tired of it. They got bankrupt out of the whole damn thing. They said it wasn't worth it, so they left. But what did we do? We pulled out. Administrations, different policy shifts. We stabbed them in the back, basically. So the Taliban, so the Afghan fighters out there, the Mujahideen, turned out to be Taliban and Al Qaeda, and also ISIS was formed in those days, forming. So they had a resentment against the Western countries, including America. Not to mention we started getting further and further into the Islamophobia in our soils. But yeah, oil, financial gains and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd agree with that one too. Okay, so now we got the Taliban, and then we got the Al Qaeda going crazy. Al Qaeda was going to be the terrorist, and Taliban, well, basically making tribal areas lunacy over there. Whatever kind of stable form of government, they were losing it left and right. Now, considering about Iraq, back to Iraq, we still had Saddam Hussein to deal with. Okay, he was still doing his crap left and right. We tried to put a no-fly zone, and he was still pulling his crap off. I mean, we installed a no-fly zone after the first Gulf War. And we had congressional hearings about it. We had news stories about it. Even the press were going crazy over this damn shit. That's what happens when you stare in front of a computer screen all the time. But no, no, no. A television screen watching all this stuff, and not to mention putting your nose into the damn newspaper and trying to absorb all this damn shit while you're young. And trying to get a context of everything. And I thought history back in the Dark Ages were bad enough. I was living in the Dark Ages. Getting as an adult, watching all this stuff, and then trying to keep my nose, trying to work my ass off left and right, but paying attention to what was going on. Watching the Sunday morning shows left and right when I'm not working, just to keep track of what the hell was going on. And feeling the world was spinning out of control during those days. We had so much anti-American resentment in the Middle East that we had to have terrorists coming over here try to destroy the World Trade Center with a van. Didn't work much. Went into one of the underground parking structures. Exploded. Guys did their FBI and a few other agencies did their investigations. Found out who the imam was. Got him busted. I don't know if he's still living or dead right now. But it didn't do much damage to the World Trade Center because it wasn't enough to do it. But the World Trade Center was an economic and symbolic figurehead of American capitalism, American power, America, period. We put these icons up there as a beacon and we use them as target practice. Some people said it was a finger of God in one way or another trying to knock it down. Maybe it was. But during those days, back in the 90s, late 90s, we had pilots being trained on how to fly craft. And they learned. They learned. Meanwhile, there was still a lot of civil unrest in Iraq. Saddam Hussein was still in there. Father passed off to the son of what his wishes were. Senior told Junior, and Junior did. Found the opportunity. 9/11. It wasn't a manufactured, but in a way, I guess it was manufactured. We just didn't see it. We just didn't see it coming. We didn't care about that one. We weren't looking for it. But it happened. And then all hell broke loose. All across the damn country and all across the world on this one. Our own skies out here in California became cluttered with military and police choppers all over the damn place. But everything else was grounded except maybe for emergency air flights. But all the damn aircraft became null and void. I mean, just grounded, including the private craft. They all found airports to hide in and just duck for cover. While the skies became the military because of that one day, and maybe for another day or two. They weren't taking any chances. It was terrifying enough watching the whole damn shit. I mean, I did videos about this one, dude. It still scared the hell out of me every time I kept watching the damn thing. Every time I kept seeing the specials decades afterwards, it still leaves me sick to my stomach on this one. You're talking about the ultra patriotism. The rah rah ree chant. Well, we had the chant a long time ago, but this one also brought out even worse. My brother got the call, but he couldn't go. His back was screwed up, and so was his knee, so he stayed home. He wasn't going anywhere. But he was at a company that actually did had half the company walked out because they got drafted back into the military. My brother, well, he wasn't. He wasn't physically able to do the job like a decade later. You also have to take into consideration here, Daryl, and this is going to be a long ass video on this one, that the departments we had for internal and external security, they weren't talking to each other. We didn't have any unified commander in those days. FBI wasn't communicating very well to CIA or to the NSA or to whatever kind of departments we had going. Nobody was communicating enough or having a joint central command. But I hate to say it, 9/11 centralized our intelligence community, both internal and external. So now we had coordinators. 9/11, ground zero, those guys couldn't even get together with each other. It took this particular disaster to unify everybody so they were talking on the same frequency and talking to each other left and right. Otherwise, it's just, uh, I'm going to use a biblical thing, okay? Tower of Babel. In the story in the Old Testament on this one here. Except everybody was unified and everybody was going to be building this tower and everybody was going to be centralized. And somehow or another, we went nuts. We went, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't understand what the hell you're talking about. What did you just say? You're speaking gibberish. You're speaking gibberish. Well, that was like us. Until we had centralized command, and then everything else became open-ended communications, theoretically, even up to this point. And then the hunt really began. Forensics everywhere. They were trying to analyze anything and everything. It took them a while. It took them a long while. It took them a few years to finally figure a few things out left and right. And yes, eventually we did find out that Osama bin Asshole was bouncing from place to place, not just in Afghanistan, but mostly in Pakistan, not staying in one place long. The guy was a Saudi. He bounced from one location to another location. That's why we had a hell of a time trying to find him. It happens the same thing over here with regular, common, everyday criminals. You bounce from place to place to place, and you leave breadcrumbs, you leave bear trails, but you're on the move. And no wonder some cops have a hard time trying to find certain people. But if everybody was ununified, looking for this asshole, they'd find him instantly out here, right? In the States, takes you long enough, but you still find the asshole. This one took years because they were hiding his ass left and right in Pakistan, and Pakistan already had problems enough with the West and also with India anyway. As I said before, Daryl, history, history, history. Everything relates. Everything is connected. You just gotta connect the dots sometimes. We go on. So apparently, this one particular Saudi had a burr up his ass against America. Financed this whole damn thing, set the shit up. Until we got this war on terror going on a constant basis now. We're going to have about maybe 2 or 3 generations full of this damn shit until we get burned out over the damn thing. We still had resentments right after World War II when we actually had it against the Germans and the Japanese. I don't know if it's quite burned out enough. We're still hating Jews these days. And Arabs and Muslims and everybody else. Bad that we hate the blacks. So, yeah, America, land of the free, home of the brave, and land of the hate. The Iraq invasion in this particular century here, Daryl. This was Bush's cleanup. This was Junior trying to clean up the mess. I don't know. Maybe he did use the excuse. Maybe he did find it. Probably not. But he used it to throw in people to find weapons of mass destruction. If they existed, he was going to find them. He was going to tear the whole damn country apart. Find Saddam, throw his ass out, but it basically empowered the people to do their own beheading. Part of the Arab Spring crap going on during those days. No, I can't crap. Some people actually wanted democracy the one way or another. And they were trying to do the Arab Spring in different countries along the African coastline, all the way through the Med and into the Middle East. That's a lot of history, I'll tell you that much. They found Saddam and they beheaded his ass. Toppled down his statues. But we also disorganized the country, political system. We had factions still coming back up again. Two or three factions going after each other. Again, had to be a coalition. We had to stay in there. We had to stay in there till it was time for us to get the hell out. But Afghanistan, we were trying to find all the assholes trying to get after us again. That's why we stayed. Maybe for the oil, I don't know. Probably for stability. We tried in one aspect of it. But then we got pulled out. One administration said that we're going to pull it out because we made a deal with the Taliban. And we're going to get the hell out of there. It's going to be up to the next administration, Biden's, to clean up the mess. But he gets the blame for everything. Old gas bag strikes again. But it was almost a 20-year war we did with nearly with Iraq, but mostly with Afghanistan. We still got troops in there, a few, but not much. It was a long, costly war. Very costly, in more ways than one on that one. And they're still suffering mentally and physically over this damn stuff. For what politicians do for each other and do to each other, for economic and God knows what else, for resource wars or for anger and hatred. God knows, it's just, yeah, it's insane at that point. Getting back to Trace Adkins, yeah, he's doing it for the money. He's not doing it for patriotism. He's doing it for the money. The last commercial I saw when I pulled it up already, they are offering the Wounded Warriors blanket as a reminder. But we still want $20 out of you every month to support our noble cause. It's like ASSPA and every other damn organization out there. If you'll donate right now, we'll give you this item here for free. No, you're paying for the damn thing. That's what you're doing. You're paying for the damn gadget and gidget and God knows what else you got. So that I got a problem with. That's a grift right there. Supporting the wounded veterans? Yeah, I would support the wounded veterans. I was dealing with a wounded veteran. I had been a caregiver to a wounded veteran up until the day he died. And nobody was supporting my ass on that one. He was my brother. He did his time. He got wounded in the service. He got more wounded out of the service. And he struggled with his own damn health issues. And I was there the last several years of his life trying to make sure he was still going to survive until he had his last breath. In a damn ambulance between home and a hospital. Wheels into the emergency room as a meat slab. Yeah, I support my wounded veteran. But I don't need Trace Adkins doing a commercial about that one. I don't do a commercial about it. I just talk about the damn thing, that's all. I may have to do a second video on this one. Not just talking about the history of it, but just talking about the emotional impact right now. We're talking about 30 minutes at this point, so part 2.